So I am Dr. Jessie Mahoney, and I am the CEO and founder of Pause and Presence Coaching. And I say that, I'm practicing saying that, and it makes me chuckle to say that a little bit. And so I'm working on it. And as Dr. Eva said, practice, practice, practice. So a year ago, this week actually, I was an employed doctor 18 years into my career as a pediatrician at the same HMO where pretty much everyone stays for their entire career. A year later, I am a successful six-figure businesswoman. In 12 months, I changed my entire identity and how I see myself. And I'm sharing this story not to gloat or brag, or as we learn in EntreMD Business School, humble brag, but to inspire and to inspire all of you about what's possible. Because I got here through being inspired by others. And so what I want to offer is, what could today be the first day of for all of you? A year ago, yesterday, was the first day of a sabbatical. And it was the first day of me no longer saying one day I'll do something, and instead saying today was day one of doing something. So I had 3 months ahead of me at that time to pause and be present and sort out my path. And what happened when I paused and was present is that I decided to form something called Pause and Presence. So how did I get here? Docs always want to know the how and the plan and the prescribed path and what to do. And unfortunately for all of you, there is no prescribed plan or path. That is the journey of entrepreneurship. There was no plan at all. I like to say we're all on different paths at different times to different dreams. And that's really what entrepreneurship was, is stepping into your own path. And as maybe disappointing as it is, I'll tell you all that I made it up as I went along. That was the fun part, the creativity, the vision, the innovative part, constant adaptation, but it's also the very much hard part. So my journey to this entrepreneurship started more than a year ago, obviously. And as Dr. Eva said, you've given a great intro to my talk. It started with a good crisis. A good crisis always up-levels you, forces you to transform. And so about 4 years ago, a little over 20 years into my marriage, my husband started struggling with some really significant mental health issues. And my journey through his struggles, helping him and working through it myself, is really what inspired my own transformation and led me to where I am now. So for those of you who haven't lived through family members with mental health issues, they're super scary, especially when they're in someone you love and in your family. And they really do disrupt everything. In many ways, they're different than medical struggles. And it's not something that I had ever been exposed to or really encountered. So it was very transformative for me. And the first thing I learned is that I really didn't want to end up there. And he didn't end up here entirely because of a mismatch of work or a lack of purpose, but it absolutely contributed to his journey. The second piece was that as someone who was successful on the surface, yet struggling underneath, I found there was very little support for people like me, and particularly around something where there's such stigma as mental health, even if it's not you, if it's in your life. So I found myself very much wanting to help people in the same situation as I found myself. So at that time, I had a super busy pediatric practice. I was actually the department chief, and I just opened up a new physical clinic. And I was the chief of physician wellness in my facility, and I had a bunch of regional and state roles in physician wellness. And I found myself very unwell. And I was supposed to be the face of wellness. And so what to do? I tried all the tools I had come up with over the years. None of them worked. I tried my usual doctor habits that we all have of pushing harder, fixing, controlling everybody, managing everything. That didn't work either. In fact, in many ways, it made it worse. What I ultimately found was this combination of mindfulness and coaching. And for me, those two modalities together were synergistic and just changed everything in my life. So not only did they help me address my family situation, but I also ended up losing 40 pounds, and I up-leveled my doctoring, and I up-leveled my leadership, and I up-leveled my parenting of my 3 teenage boys. They will all tell you I'm a totally different person. So going through this experience just awakened my passion and changed my whole vision of health and healing and how to help my patients and how to help my colleagues as a wellness leader. So I'm your typical type A doctor. I signed up to become a coach and did 6 months of coach training. I also signed up to become a yoga teacher and up-level my yoga and mindfulness. And I took all of these tools to my wellness leadership role and shared them the best that I could within a big HMO and within a big system, but found that it wasn't enough. Even sharing them in my exam room, you know, in a big HMO, I had 15 minutes with a patient. And so I couldn't do what I really wanted to do at that point. So it was clear that I wanted to share these tools further. And this was the work that made me come alive. So this was where I was when I started my sabbatical a year ago. I had the passion and the itch. I had no idea how, and I didn't have the bravery to move forward to make the how happen. So once again, I went back to these mindfulness and coaching tips and paused and was present because that was the opportunity I had with the sabbatical. And I really stepped into my own wisdom and experience, my training as a wellness leader, my training as a mom, my training as a pediatrician, and really stepped into who I was and where I came from. Stepping into my own sort of authenticity and uniqueness. And for those of you who don't know, I grew up in Berkeley in a very hippie family in the 70s with a VW bus. And it's actually, as I thought about it, was extremely unlikely that I would keep the same job in a big corporation for as long as I had, 20 years. So when I really thought about it, I started to think about what made me come alive. And I love this quote that says, don't ask yourself what the world needs, ask yourself what makes you come alive and go and do that. Because what the world needs is people who've come alive. And the funny story about that quote is that I came across that. I teach yoga with themes, and that was the theme of my yoga class last New Year's Eve when I was teaching 6 weeks into my sabbatical. And it was the thing that launched me forward. I decided to just go for it. And so I essentially let go of my floaties, which was my job security. It came with security, but it also came with a lot of restrictions. And so I jumped into this, what I call a sea of unknown, but also a sea of possibility. Jumping required bravery and courage, but it also gave me bravery and courage to keep going. And without those floaties, I really had to decide that I was going to have my own back and follow my own decisions and make them the right decision. Now that was something that I had learned in my coach training. And I continued along this journey to really go back to mindfulness and coaching all along and use the tools that I had found so valuable in my previous struggles. So a couple of other things that I want to share that really helped me move forward at this point were this thought that what will the world miss out on if you don't do what you were meant to do? And then the other one that I really dug into is on the other side of discomfort is fun. A lot of people say it's growth, but for me, it was the fun that inspired me forth. And so what happened when I owned this wisdom and authenticity and let go of my floaties and managed my mind was that I was able to create a business to help people who were in the spot that I was, successful on the surface, yet struggling underneath. I was able to be the person that I desperately needed and couldn't find when I found myself struggling years before in this moment. And so I shared these tools. I created something where I could help other people simplify and connect better with those they loved and find a path forward when life's throwing you curveballs. And I did this in the moment. This is in February when I started. So life began to throw us all an awful lot of curveballs. And so what happened is my business grew much faster than I imagined because so many people found themselves in that situation. My business grew a lot faster, however, than I was prepared for. And a few months into it, despite all my mindfulness, yoga teaching, grounding tools, centering tools, I found myself a bit ungrounded and uncentered. And that's where I went back and tried to find collaboration and community. And I found this actually in 3 ways. One was creating it myself by collaborating with a number of other physician entrepreneurs and creating the Mindful Healthcare Collective. And the collaboration amongst ourselves and supporting one another is a really powerful tool that I think as we're launching into entrepreneurship, on the one hand, we're doing it alone, and yet we really need to do it together. I also collaborated with one specific colleague whose passions dovetailed with mine to create a specific program that we could work on together. Again, creating support and being support for someone else is really powerful. And then I joined EntreMD Business School because not only did I want to be a support and find support, but I needed more guidance and I needed some place to sort of land and find grounding. And so there I found that. As many other people have mentioned, and I'm going to throw this unscripted in, but I'm learning and learned how to be a better speaker. And I also hired a VA and a CPA and a graphic designer and got the help that I needed all this month, thanks to Dr. Una's pushing and prodding and telling me why I needed it. And wow, it makes a huge difference. And so this is where I find myself today, in this moment of having had a lot of success and learning how to celebrate it. And that's the other thing we learn in EntreMD Business School, is to celebrate where you've been, not from this idea of bragging, but because when you celebrate, it actually inspires you and inspires others and leads to more celebrations because it brings you to places where there's more to celebrate. So for that, I'm ever grateful for stepping into this group of amazing, like-minded entrepreneurs. So my tip for all of you is to step into your own lane, as I like to say, do what makes you come alive and show up as your authentic self. One of my favorite coaching questions that I ask my clients is, ask yourself what love would do. And love may not seem like entrepreneurship, but when you approach it from love, well, what would you do from love for yourself, for your family, and for the world, what you want to bring to the world? And go do that, and amazing things will happen. So you all can find out more about me or what I've done and what I'm doing at pauseandpresence.com. It's also Jessie Mahoney, MD, but with an IE. And then while you're there, I really encourage you to check out my blog. One, because I love it and it's my passion and my baby, but also because it's been my #1 business generating tool. And so I think it's an example of a way to show up as you and share your vision and your story and who you are, and it will hopefully inspire. And while you're there, if you are interested in finding out more about coaching and how coaching can help you if you're struggling underneath, successful all on the surface, I know all of you are because you're here, but struggling, you can find a way to talk to me or learn a little bit more about how this can transform your life. It's my passion. So imagine if any of you chose to pause and be present in this moment. You don't need a sabbatical, you just need a Saturday. Look within, own your own authenticity, and decide to step into your own lane. Ask yourself what love would do and step in and do that. And what could today be the first day of for all of you?